afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar, Power Play, Investing in Cutting-Edge Inclusive Energy Efficiency Programs for Cooperatives and Their Members. This webinar is produced by the National Cooperative Business Association in partnership with the Environmental and Energy Study Institute. Before we begin, just a bit of housekeeping for you. Participant phone lines will be muted during this presentation to reduce background noise. There will be a chance to pose questions, just not verbally. If you have a question, please type it into the question box on the GoToWebinar control panel on your screen. Questions will be collected and answered as time allows toward the end of the program. NCBA CLUSA will be recording this program and will be archived on our website. You will receive an email containing a link to the posted recording early next week. With that said, I will turn the webinar over to our moderator, NCBA CLUSA President and CEO, Doug O'Brien.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone online. It's great to have everybody join us today. I am Doug O'Brien. I'm the President and CEO of the National Cooperative Business Association. We're the 102-year-old umbrella organization for cooperatives here in the United States. Our mission is to promote and advocate and defend the cooperative business model. And today we're talking about something that we're involved with to promote the cooperative business model and helping families utilize the inclusive energy economy. And really what we're talking about is how to make sure that families are able to increase their discretionary income by lowering their electricity and utility bills. The model that we're part of, NCBA is presenting this webinar with the Environmental and Energy Study Institute, which is our collaborator in the Partnership for Advancing an Inclusive Rural Energy Economy. The partnership seeks to put more money in the pockets of people in rural communities by supporting rural electric cooperatives in developing innovative programs for energy efficiency upgrades and renewable energy projects. On this webinar, we're very pleased to be joined by two cooperative leaders who are at the cutting edge of delivering these types of programs. Right directly to my right is Curtis Wynn, and he's the president and CEO of the Roanoke Electric Cooperative in North Carolina, which runs the Upgrade to Save program. And to Curtis's right is Mike Quick. He's the president and CEO of the Electric Cooperatives of South Carolina, which runs the Help My House program. We're also joined by Bob Coates, an interdisciplinary engineer with the USDA Rural Utility Services, and which administers the Rural Energy Savings Program and the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Loan Program, two programs that provide funds for the co-op programs you'll hear about in a moment, and that can provide funding to other co-ops that are interested in following the lead of their colleagues in North and South Carolina. We're doing this webinar because we want to provide good information, compelling stories to all of you. But we also have a goal of seeing programs like Upgrade to Save and Help My House replicated in other communities across the country, and ideally using USDA funds that are available for that purpose. The partnership can also provide technical assistance to RECs and we'd like to pursue this. So we will provide you with the information about who you can contact to learn more at the end of this webinar. So from now, I'm pretty much done talking, and you're going to hear from the experts. And they're expert because they've actually moved out and they're starting to implement these programs, these visionary programs that are making a real difference in these rural communities. So Curtis, first I'm going to ask you, please talk about your program and how they help support broader economic activity and economic development in the communities that you serve.
Okay, thanks, Doug. As you mentioned, the name of our program globally is the Energy Efficiency Conservation Loan Program. That is the way it's funded. We call our program Upgrade to Save. That is the name that we've coined for it, and it's a tariff-based energy efficiency program that basically does what you just mentioned. It helps people in on our membership, on our cooperative lines. Let me just put it in three buckets if I can. The benefit to them. Well, to date, as of April 30th, we completed 315 homes. So that's 315 families that are seeing lower utility bills. The way the program works is the cooperative manages the project from start to finish. Through the line of credit that we've established with the USDA, we have $6 million of funds available to take care of the upfront investment of those projects. So the members who are participating have no out-of-pocket investment. We consider these investments in our system. And just like we would invest in a transformer or a line on our distribution system, we're investing on the other side of the meter, which is an allowance that this program has done for the very first time. And with that, in return for that, we're seeing on the utility side, we're seeing lower costs on the biggest expense that we have, and that is power supply. So the members are seeing their utility bills cut as much as 25%. That is a requirement of our program. They have to at least see a 25% reduction in their utility bill even after we place the tariff on the bill to recoup the investment that we make over time. So they come out ahead of the game up front. So the members is winning, the cooperative is winning, and the third element of this that's in the community are the contractors that are doing the work. If you look at the investment to date, we've invested about $2.3 million to date of the $6 million line of credit. And that is going into the hands of local contractors who are doing this work, and they're doing a very good job. And we're seeing their businesses grow, which means employment in the community, as well as the trickle effect of what happens when those dollars turn over. So we're seeing those benefits today, and we're looking forward to sharing this with other people, as well as doubling down on our program to expand it and do more.
That's great, Curtis, and I think that's a great explanation of how the program worked, but also all the diverse set of beneficiaries in your community. That's important. Mike, can you explain kind of the basics of your program?
Sure. And Doug, let me start by saying I really appreciate y'all hosting this. Also appreciate the partnership we've had with EESI, the Environmental Energy Study Institute, now in our 10th year. Carol Warner and her staff have been fantastic to work with. South Carolina first started working on this back in the 2008 period, and we then met with the RUS and said, this is a possibility to help us in South Carolina because we don't own generation as electric cooperatives. We don't even have a G&T. We have a T that transmits electricity. So when we looked at possibilities of generation, we really viewed the house as a potential resource to pull from as opposed just to supplying. So as we worked through with Congressman Clyburn and others, first in the Red Lake program that was run by RUS, which was a $1 million tranche of money that could be borrowed for economic investment in these rural communities, but later working with Congress on the Rural Energy Savings Program, which is kind of the part that we're under. Our program, Help My House, is focused on having that positive cash flow within that home, hopefully within a 10-year period. Originally, we set a goal of within 6.6 years, whatever you did had to pay back. We've had some beat that. We've seen energy consumption reductions well in excess of 50%. We've had some homes actually though where the consumption went up. We had one home that went up 5 or 6%. We found out what was going on there. The guy had never had electric heating or air conditioning. He was heating with wood. So the part I really like about this program is our members like it. And that ballot box is so important to cooperative, that principle of democratic control. How can we be in the business of selling people more electricity than they can afford? It's a short-term proposition. So what we've done with this program is lend the money through own bill financing, which our state passed own bill financing legislation. We audit in to make sure the work, we know what needs to be done through a BPI certified auditor. We pay the contractor to do the work, and then we audit on the back end to make sure the work's been done well. We hope, our goal is that, so that 1/3 of that savings is in our members' pocket in month one after that. But what we find is that the members are just satisfied. During our pilot that we did with EESI and the Doris Duke Foundation back in the 2011-2012 period, let me share some numbers with you about member satisfaction. The level of satisfaction with the cooperative was either the same or higher, but 96% of those people that participated in which was then a very, it was a brand new program, so there was a level of complexity to it that had to be explained. still a year later, we went back and surveyed, 96% of the people felt good about their co-op. 89% said their home was more comfortable. Their satisfaction with their bill, the backside of the bill was 89%. And this is the one that blows me away. 96% of them thought their contractor still had done a good job. And this is in residential construction, 96% construction rate. There's a real focus on quality control here. We've had one co-op that's done about the same number of homes as Curtis under Help My House. They've been working under Red Leg over this period of time. The savings we've seen there have been fantastic. There's also a benefit to the environment here. For every home we do in South Carolina, we're reducing those CO2 emissions. We've reduced them about 20,000 metric tons with that one co-op. We in turn are selling those to Duke University for them to reduce their carbon footprint in Durham, North Carolina. I think as we start looking at revenue sources, we could even be innovative there. People that are looking to be green, big companies like Volvo that serve by a co-op in South Carolina, other big companies. This is an alternative even to solar or to wind. If you want to invest in something that's right for your community, this is it, because it helps the community grow jobs, as Curtis mentioned. It also says there's a sense of commitment that we're going to take care of the least of us.
Right. Mike, that's a great explanation. I think that hitting on the key component that it needs to be financially viable and sustainable, and that's proving out. But all of those benefits that sometimes are a little bit harder to quantify, but really make a difference for those co-op members. That quality of life, that engagement with their co-op, I think, is so important. So, for all this to work, we've talked a couple times about it. It needs to be financed, and there's a couple programs at USDA. And Bob, you're with us today. Could you just give us a brief summary of these two programs and how they work?
I could. You're probably just as well off doing that as an alum of the USDA's Rural Utilities Service. But Curtis and Mike are participants in two great programs. Curtis with the EELC, which is the Energy Efficiency Conservation Loan Program, and Mike with soon-to-be with RESP, the Rural Energy Savings Program. EELC is kind of the big brother of RESP in that it's a little bit older. It's billions of dollars available, pretty much the same funding as would any of the other co-op funding for the electric program. RESP is a brand new program. It's on the order of about $50 million a year. Give you a couple of snippets about each of them as we run through this, because there are similarities and there are differences. As far as eligibility is concerned, ECLIP is for utilities in the rural areas. RESP is not necessarily limited to utilities, but they have to serve, well, both of them have to serve rural areas. And as with the company that you run, KW Savings is not itself a utility or a co-op, but it's associated with one, and it has several co-ops that are members. The purpose for ECLIP is to help utilities to manage their system load growth and provide a more efficient and beneficial load profile. For RESP, it actually gets back to the individuals, which are the recipients of the co-ops funding, and that's to help rural families and small businesses to reduce energy costs or consumption. The interest rate, which is kind of interesting, for ECLIP, it's a little bit higher. It's the Treasury rate plus an eighth, which is what we offer to our co-ops today. RESP is quite a bit different. It's 0%. So basically, we loan this out, kind of sort of free of charge. We just want the money back over a 20-year period. The interest rate to the borrower, as far as ECLIP is concerned, the borrower, the co-op is allowed to charge 1.5% over what it costs them, and for RESP you can go to 3%. It's your option as to whether you want to go lower, but you can't. It's capped at those. Okay. Loan terms for ECLIP is typically roughly 15 years or the useful life of the equipment. For the most part, it's going to be the 15 years because much of this equipment is certainly should be amortized well within that 15-year period. And For the RESP program, it's up to 20 years. We say that it's payable after. In other words, if you borrow all your money, you can't do that. You borrow money at year 1, you have to pay it back by year 11. You have to pay it back within 10 years. But you've got a 10-year window in which you can or cannot borrow your money. We talked about, both of you talked about the on-bill or the tariff, and that is, it's not necessarily a requirement. We certainly encourage it to do either on-bill or the tariff financing because it protects not only the co-op, but it also protects us as well. I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I mean, it's there's obviously 2 different programs. They're in the span of federal programs. They're still fairly new. We have a couple pioneers sitting with us here, and there's more out there in the countryside. And again, part of the goal of today is to make sure that more people understand this and pick up and look at those programs and hopefully participate in the future. Again, just reminding folks that part of the partnership with EESI and NCBA Coops is to help rural electric cooperatives with some technical assistance if you're interested in this, and we'll have that contact information at the end. I did want to go to just kind of a second round of questions on to Curtis and Mike, and that's you certainly have touched on in different ways how the financing mechanism works. You might want to go a little bit deeper into that, but in the context of what does it mean for your communities in terms of making it possible for more people to be included, in these programs, and all the communities have a wide range of people, income and otherwise. How does this program work, so that it's broadly inclusive?
Mike?
One thing, each of our co-ops, because they are autonomous, do it a little bit differently. And now we're talking mainly about co-ops that have used red leg lending that are getting ready to convert to rural energy savings program lending. And they work through KW Savings. And KW Savings is part of the statewide organization in South Carolina in terms of how it's organized. We've tried to accommodate those differences. But generally what they've done is they said, for most of those co-ops, we're not going to worry about a credit report. We're going to treat the home as the asset.
Okay.
We're going to audit in and audit out to make sure that we believe it's going to perform. And for that reason, we're not worried about that. There's some really good CFC data out there. And what it shows you is the likelihood of an electricity bill being paid by a co-op consumer member across this country is far in excess of 99.5%. Just the risk of loss of not paying that bill either through a tariff or on-bill financing is so low that you can afford to make some choices that a co-op ought to be making that maybe an investor-owned utility can't. I think that's one of the chief differences we have in South Carolina, maybe Curtis, that we've, not from y'all, but just generally what others have done, we've tried to make it work for as many people as we possibly could, including landlord-tenant situations.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, what motivated Roanoke to get involved in this program to begin with was the screaming cry from our member owners who were experiencing very expensive electric bills and not having the ability to pay for them, particularly in those winter months and those hot summer months when the bills were higher than normal. We use I want to mention the process that we use, and we didn't invent this process. It's called the pay-as-you-save system, which was really good for us going into it as one of the first co-ops to get into this. The groundwork was pretty much laid, and the forms we needed, the stipulations going into the program that we placed on member owners were pretty much in place. So we had a blueprint from which to run the program, and we had a lot of other support to help us do that. So with the pay system, the inclusiveness of that is really phenomenal, because if we, before getting into the Upgrade to Save program, we tried on-bill financing. It took us almost a year to put it together, where we would do the traditional on-bill financing. After about a year of work, we got one person to take us on our offer to do on-bill financing. To Mike's point, every co-op is a little bit different. So in our case, with a lot of low wealth member owners who did not have an interest in qualifying or being considered for a loan, the pays using the tariff approach really was a win for us, because we've taken on the upfront investment, as I mentioned earlier, and there is no credit requirement. They just have to be willing to pay their utility bill. And we're making that investment, and because we've removed that barrier, the uptake has been exactly what we want it to be. Those same people who had given us a pass on the first round with the on-bill financing took us up on this offer, and we feel that we're touching everybody. It's not just limited, though, for low wealth members. As we've been in the program, now we're going to be marketing the program to all of our members more extensively to make sure that all of the houses that we serve are efficient, that they're enjoying the lowest bill possible, and that those savings that we create through the program are spread as much as they can be across the system.
That's good. Yeah. So it's all the members. It's
all
something that's really going to work for all the members. And I'll just mention that in a little bit, and those are online. I think you've seen some communication. We're going to welcome some online questions here in a few minutes. I actually have a follow-up question, and it's been referred to a couple times, and that's the Red Leg Loan Program. You could either probably Mike or Bob talk a little bit about what's that loan, and then how does you mentioned that a number of your co-ops are looking to kind of transition and moving into what maybe is a newer generation program that's going to work better here.
Red Leg program has been around for a while, and it's supposed to spur economic investment in rural communities. The same co-op that's been so great with Help My House in South Carolina, Aiken, used it actually to get a food line built in a small community. They were at a place where they had to drive 40 miles to go grocery shopping. And so what they do is the co-op borrows the money, lends it to the economic opportunity, and then it's paid back through the co-op. And it's a low interest or no interest loan. And there are requirements of matching and those sorts of things that we're all familiar with. Those are $1 million tranches of money. One of the disadvantages of a $1 million tranche, putting together a business plan that you can get scale with and is sustainable, is challenged. But we made it work. From about 2009 or 10 forward, we've lived off Red Leg loans in South Carolina. What we found, though, was we needed something that would allow us to go to scale, and that's RESP. And it allows us to not have to worry about some of the requirements of Red Leg, which we can certainly meet. KW Savings was created because of Red Leg. You had to have a third entity that you would lend the money to. Just like that grocery store I mentioned that Aiken Electric lent to, each of these co-ops, when they borrow into Red Leg, lends that money to KW Savings, and then it's paid back.
Right. Which I think it was a program I'm familiar with, and it was such a great innovative use of creating economic, activity in rural places. And then I think a great story of how it's evolving into a program that can get to scale and that can reach a lot more homes. So I think I got my first question online. It's actually to Bob. Bob asking here, can rural municipal utilities that have not previously accessed RUS funds participate in either of these programs? If so, how would RUS funding compare to the issuance of municipal bonds?
The bonds is going to be, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that one. Okay. But the answer is yes, if the municipal provides currently the CFR in 1710.101 is very specific that it does limit it to those that do provide electric service. Okay. That's something that is a deterrent to some, but there are an awful lot of those municipalities that do. And as far as bonds are concerned, it's just an interest rate thing as far as the loans are concerned.
Right.
The bonds, it's based on the bond rating, et cetera. Once you reach a threshold for the rural utility service, and frankly, it's fairly low for RESP. As far as the debt service ratio is 1.05 for RESP, which is pretty low.
Right.
For the regular programs, it's about 1.25. So it's RESP is very, very. The intent is to make it as palatable for as many, especially the smaller utilities, as possible.
Okay, good. Thank you. Another one that just came in. This is from Rodney Tobin. Thank you for sending this in. So I think this is going to be for both Curtis and Mike. So are the two co-op programs discussed today available for manufactured homes? Are there any particular challenges with manufactured housing, and are they available to businesses, members, or customers? So, okay, so there's a couple questions there, one on manufactured homes, and the next one, beyond residential.
So the answer is yes. The omnibus bill that was just passed weeks ago includes a provision for manufactured homes, where before, and we've been telling borrowers or potential borrowers, applicants all along that we were not able to do it, specifically because of the congressional intent. Now we are. They changed the rules. Manufactured homes are available, and so if your interest is in any of the opportunities along everything from lighting improvements to HVAC to building envelope, whatever, and it includes those manufactured homes, we would encourage you to apply. We have a NOFA that is in the process of being approved. We would love to see that out on the street, certainly within the next 2 months. That has quite a bit of money available for it. So I would encourage you to, one, watch the congressional record, and two, contact me if you've got any questions. And as soon as if you contact me and ask me to let you know, I will keep you in a database, and I will notify everybody as soon as it is out. Yeah.
Doug, that's on the replacement home. Now, in South Carolina, 1 out of 4 of our homes is going to be a manufactured home. I think Curtis's area is at least that high. So that's been the low-hanging fruit in South Carolina, manufactured homes. We've gone out, and they're usually built at the least cost, which it means they're going to have strip-resistant heat, which is trying to heat a home with a hairdryer. Right. And we're going to go in there and put a high-quality heat pump in, other things. So they're already been qualified to retrofit. This just adds another dimension. If you go to that home, and it's not one that will prove out financially to be worth the investment, this might give you another alternative.
Right. Good. Yeah. Well, and I think that's where your area of expertise and your experience is such that these are not as easy as some of the stick-built houses, which don't have any insulation you can blow in or something along in that line. But I think you and your contractors have done a fantastic job of being able to squeeze some insulation into something that ordinarily would not be available, and cutting that rate by, as you say, 25% or more, to make that more useful.
Yeah, and if the whole, at the end of the day, what this is all about is really making a difference to these families. To create more discretionary income for folks who live in manufactured homes. There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of potential. You guys are capturing that. I'll ask, actually, there was a second part of that question, so I'll ask it quickly. The programs, RESP and eClip, are they available for businesses?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. We have allocated a portion of our funding for business commercial use. We have not to date done any business per se, but we have done some churches, which kind of fall in that non-residential category. So, and have seen good results from that.
Great.
It's what a way to get the word out.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, but that's a good. Yeah, it's good to have a validator. Thank you for that. So, a question came in. This is probably Curtis and Mike. You have some particular experience in this, and how can members convince their co-op leadership to implement the program? So we're really kind of getting right to the heart of what a cooperative is. What's the best way for members who, if they know about this kind of work, to really reach their co-op to have them respond? I think like you did. You heard from your members and you responded. Yes,
and that's what we do as co-ops, right? We have a part of our whole strategy execution system is responding to our members' call to serve them. That's in our opinion why we were put here, to serve the members. And the way we're structured, if they're complaining to us, they're probably complaining to my bosses, who are the board of directors, and their neighbors, who have a keen interest to make sure that their neighbors are happy. So I just think utilize the cooperative model, and if you're not clear about the cooperative model, let's find out what the cooperative model is all about.
That's right. Good. Mike, do you have anything to add to that?
I think trustees are key. I'm a big believer in that part of the governance structure of co-ops. In just sharing, give me a way out. I'm in a home that I love staying in. Yeah. I'm in a home that may mean something to my family. It may have been built by my forebears and I want to stay there, but give me a way out. And I think the trustees will be very, very open to that sort of thing if it makes business sense. And I know with what Curtis has done in the co-ops in South Carolina, this is not a handout. This is a matter it pays for itself. You're not asking a trustee or a CEO to make a bad decision. You're asking to make a smart financial decision and a smart co-op democracy decision.
Right. Yeah. Good. Thank you. Thanks, Mike. So this one from Bailey, a nice kind of technical question here. Are these programs doable for multifamily homes?
As far as I'm concerned, yes.
As long as they're a member of the co-op.
There's a good example, especially on the ECLIP program in Wichita, and he's a good friend of mine. He doesn't mind me bragging on him, but they have definitely done a great job with multifamily housing with their co-op. They're a smaller co-op than our co-op, and they have done thousands of using the ECLIP program. So it does work, and there's a good example of where it has worked.
And I mean, as someone who lived in apartments for a while, sometimes that demand response system is even, I'd say, further apart, or it doesn't work, as well. This seems like a particular wise use of these programs. So this one is from Andrew. Could you walk us through a typical homeowner experience in these programs? Is there an energy audit followed by recommended improvements, etc.? And I guess, I mean, that's basically the question is, what does, from the homeowner's point of view, your co-op now has chosen to and borrowed money.
Curtis really hit on it earlier. A lot of the ones we get are ones that call in with a high bill complaint. And if you don't have one of these programs, what do you do with them? Previously, we'd send somebody out and say, you ought to do X, Y, and Z. You can save money. And then the homeowner goes, I don't have any money. Now what we do is we get that high bill complaint. We roll a marketing member services type person or whatever out to that home. We always want the co-op to be the face of these programs. We don't want to turn it over to anybody. That's part of the quality control. That member schedules an appointment. That co-op representative shows up and can do, usually with a site visit, just even driving by sometimes, can tell pretty quickly whether the home is going to qualify or not. The next step is to schedule that appointment with an auditor, again, a Building Performance Institute certified auditor, to do the type of test that says, if you do these things, the payback will be this. Then we have a list of approved contractors that the homeowner looks down. And the reason we say approved, when we started the pilot, we had contractors that had to come back to the same house 6, 7, 8 times in order to get it right, because we wouldn't pay them until they got it right. We need those contractors to understand it's a matter of getting it right before they get paid. We want the homeowner to know that as well. Then the work's done. And then traditionally what we've done is another BPI certified audit on the back end to make sure the work was done appropriately. And then, of course, we have the paperwork in the middle, which is the loan paperwork and those sorts of things. But always the co-op is the face of the program. We're making sure that members stay satisfied. That's why you end up with those extraordinary numbers of 96% of our members in the pilot a year later saying they liked it. And then they get the bill once a month. And then we go back and survey later about satisfaction. Again, if you do it right, and I put a lot of emphasis on quality control, it will only improve your relationship with your members. Whereas before, if they called in with that same high bill complaint and you said, well, we'll send that same person out to visit you again, you're not making any deal. I also want to do a shout out for prepay, and you call it something else.
Pay as you
get wonderful programs. You can pair those things even together. We're giving our people that have these phone calls come in, these customer service representatives, we're giving them a toolbox to work with for member satisfaction.
Just to piggyback, there are a variety of ways to do this. One of the approaches we found to be effective is to bring in and utilize a very successful program operator. And Mike, in our previous conversation before we came on the set, you used the word scale, and capacity is another one I'll add to that. And to run these programs, you really need to have support groups or support organizations that know how to do it.
Absolutely.
And as a CEO of a relatively small cooperative, I definitely will emphasize the fact that sometimes your staff is already tasked about as far as they can go. But bringing the program you can account for bringing in program operators or someone who can help manage it on your behalf. It doesn't take away from the element of the member facing that the cooperative is still going to do. You will be on the front end, but the nuts and bolts of how to run the program and do it effectively from start to finish, I highly recommend for those smaller co-ops, especially who don't have the capacity to look at utilizing a program operator who has already got the experience with that.
Makes sense.
Let me ask you a quick question. Do you get, how do you get your customers? Do you get them from bill stuffers, word of mouth?
The problem is you've got too many opportunities.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. We did one home in Aiken County, South Carolina, and it was on one rural road. And when they were through doing it, as they were getting ready to leave, the lady that lived there said, all those neighbors have come by this week and they've asked what's going on and they want you to do them next. Or these high bill complaints. You've got to be ready for the deluge based on need. In South Carolina, the age of our housing is older, the number of manufactured homes. We are truly the Saudi Arabia of energy inefficiency. We've got a lot to mine there. We just need to work it.
Okay. All right. The next question here, and it's for you, Curtis. Does your program use smart grid features for greater customer monitoring and control, demand response? And to what extent does broadband access, or the lack thereof, influence the technology you use to enable this greater energy saving?
Well, that's a very good question, and the short answer is yes. To the extent that we're able to, we are going behind the upgrades with cooperative-sponsored smart thermostats and water heater control element control devices. The downside of that is you must have some type of communications broadband. And unfortunately, in our territory, we're somewhat lacking in that area. So what that has done is it has encouraged and helped us put the business model together to actually put a broadband play into place, if you will. And we're at the very front end of deploying broadband. We've connected all of our substations, and now we're going to be pushing broadband to every member owner on our system, with the main purpose of being able to enable what the person who just asked that question just asked us. The byproduct of all of this, yes, they're going to be able to use access Netflix, and their children are going to be able to do their homework at home and not in the parking lot of the grocery store. They're going to hopefully do home monitoring if there are health issues, and all of that's going to be a byproduct. But the primary reason from our perspective is to fully utilize smart grid demand response programs and maximize the benefit that our members and our clients.
Right, it's a real investment in your system.
It's a true investment.
Yeah. Okay, great. Bob, a question for you. What are the smallest and largest sized co-ops that have participated in the REST program? Just give a sense of how big or small.
We don't really judge that way, but certainly if you count KW as one, okay, it's probably one of the bigger ones. And the smaller ones can be as small as a couple thousand subs. So it runs the gamut, truly, of the entire spectrum of the cooperative world.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid, no matter what size you are.
Right. That's the key there. Okay. I have kind of two questions, and I think we have a couple more questions coming in. We're getting real close to time. Some great questions coming in. And there's one is pretty open-ended, and is there something that you haven't had a chance to share? So think about that a little bit. But then another one is you certainly alluded to a number of specific examples in terms of what has it really meant for a family in your co-op, in geography. If there's a story that you could share with all of us to kind of really bring it home, and what does it mean? What do these programs really mean? So I'll just maybe Curtis or Mike kind of open that up.
Well, we've to market the program, we have actually done a couple of videos. One is a true testimonial of 3 or 4 of our member owners who have talked about what it means to them. And what cries the loudest to us is the fact that they're saving on their energy consumption, and they're comfortable in their homes, which was not in place before. But we have had positive stories, but the specific one where I'm sure we can share the video.
Sure,
with,
we'll share those links. Yeah.
So that speaks for itself. I couldn't come close to saying it the way the lady and the gentleman in the video say it. So I'll let that speak for that. But the thing I guess that I haven't shared yet is the real business. I haven't emphasized the business case on the front end. I think if I had one point to drive, would be the fact that there are tools out there that can give you and gave me and my board complete comfort in going forward with this type of investment. An additional $6 million of investment is nothing to sneeze at. And putting that on our system, the way we're doing it, we want it to be very sure that this is a sound investment. And I can say that there are good financial models that you can use to really come to a comfort level with them.
That's really important for the board. Mike, anything to add?
Sure. I don't know if you recall the movie Mel Gibson, The Patriot, and he's on the fly teaching his sons how to shoot a musket rifle or whatever at the Redcoats, and he has to give them a quick on-the-ground lesson. He says, aim small, miss small. So many times in this industry, we think we have to go conventional, large-scale generation and make choices that encumber billions of dollars, like in South Carolina, with 2 now failed nuclear units that co-op members are only responsible for nearly $3 billion. Now, we may miss on a home. Our usual investment's a little over $9,500 on a home. We miss very few, but if you miss, you're missing small. And as we move forward with technology changing so quickly, I hope that we'll opt for things that are micro, as opposed to thinking we've got to go after the next silver bullet, which is either a lot of natural gas or a lot of solar, whatever. Let's diversify, but it's also think of that home as being an energy resource.
Yeah. And Mike, I'd like to pick up on that just a little bit. On one of the reasons that I know NCBA was so excited to partner with EESI on this was the idea of making sure that people, all people in the United States, and in this case, it's utilizing the cooperative business model in that rural geography, and really leveraging the amazing story of people coming together, to access, in 1930s and 40s to access the state-of-the-art infrastructure so they could participate in the economy. Well, that's true today, and there's a modern energy economy that's evolving, and for folks in a lot of parts of this country, they have access to that, but a lot of parts, without the co-op standing up and using the model to make sure that its members can take advantage of state-of-the-art energy efficiency and renewable energy, it's just not going to, be accessible to them. So I think it's just.
Did you see Secretary Perdue at the Washington Ledge Conference?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
He said 2 things that stuck with me. One thing he says, we need innovative leaders for this new economy. And Curtis is one of those, and I'm so proud of what he's doing with NRACA. I mean, and leading the whole group this way. The other thing he said was, we need to do right and feed everyone. That was the mission of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. These programs allow you to do that. Do right in so many ways, right by people, but also that potential, but they can take that money and make other choices with it other than electricity.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we're at time. I'd like to keep talking about this. This is it's an issue certainly near and dear to my heart, and you can tell from all 3 of the gentlemen sitting next to me, near and dear to their hearts. It's a program that's already made a difference for so many people in rural places, and is really has promise to really go to scale in the next few years. So please, for those who are interested, you want to learn more, accessing the programs. I know USDA, RUS, Bob's contact information will be there. I know these 2 gentlemen are very accessible and do such a great job of sharing their story. And hear from, and I'll just speak for, in this case, National Cooperative Business Association and EESI, and thanking everybody for taking the time today and hearing more about how we can help rural people take part in the inclusive energy economy. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.